12th at 4:32 p.m. And I call this meeting of the Clear Creek Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called, that its notice has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. Do we have any community input? Okay, no community input for this evening. Next item on the agenda is consent, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bowen?
I move passage of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, if you'll raise your right hand. It passes unanimous. Thank you. Next item, B. Mr. Miller?
Yes. Mr. Miller is requesting funds for the replacement of heating and cooling coils that were damaged as a result of the Arctic freeze, which our district closure on Tuesday, January 16th. So we'll turn that over to Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Engel. So we did fairly well over this freeze. We've got about 11 or 12 coils that were damaged from the cold air coming into the outside air units. So these units are on our roofs and actually bring in outdoor air. We did do a great deal of work in our maintenance department to go through and damper those closed and really worked on that. So that's why it wasn't as large as it was the last time in February. But we do need to get these things replaced. The $250,000 includes a $38,000 contingency to make sure that the quotes we got will actually pan out when we get the final quotes. We have some preliminary budget items on here that we know they're going to be close to this dollar amount. So this will allow us to replace those coils with new coils and get those ordered as soon as possible because they do have a long lead time.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just a quick question, and sorry if I didn't catch this, but are these going to be reimbursed by insurance, or are they below the deductible?
They are not. We're well under the deductible.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rowan. Mr. Miller, I did have a question about the age of those coils. Are the ones, if they're older, are they more susceptible, or does it not really make a difference just based on location?
It's actually the older they are, the less susceptible because they're getting thinner and thinner as you trying to meet newer and newer energy code. Those thicker coils back then, they're much more durable, but they don't have the efficiency of the newer coils. So some of your newer ones actually end up breaking easier than the old ones, and they're harder to repair because when you're trying to weld on a very thin walled coil, you can often damage the coil beyond repair. So these are estimated to be full replacements. These kind of units, they are the replacement of the coil will extend the life of those units significantly. Mm-hmm. So the rest of the unit generally would be something that would last longer.
See. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President.
Mr. Cottrell.
I move that we approve the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the use of capital project funds of $250,000 for facility-related projects.
Thank you, Mr. Cottrell. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, if you'll raise your right hand. It passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, we're actually going to swap, I think, the order. So we'll start with our strategic planning update.
Yeah, just a quick strategic planning update, and I think many of you, or all of you are familiar, but a group of 60 people committed to the ongoing success of Clear Creek ISD met on February 1st and 2nd in Building 1958 at the Johnson Space Center. We're grateful to President Sanchez for facilitating that. And in attendance were all trustees, district and campus staff, community members, business leaders, and students. And the work was scheduled for 1.5 days, but extended into the afternoon of that second day, thanks to the hard work of a subset of the group, updating the belief statements and creating a vision statement. And I'd like to share the group's final draft of the belief statements and vision statement. And along with this work, many ideas were generated for strategic initiatives. And so Cabinet is in the process of working through those ideas and consolidating those to share with trustees in an upcoming board work session. So first of all, this final draft CCISD vision statement, empowering every student with a world-class education that ignites passions and fuels endeavors. And then belief statements, and these are summarized, and I would like to read those to you because they are very powerful. As everybody put their provided input, I think these final belief statements are truly shared belief statements. There is a collective moral imperative to invest in each person's capacity to thrive. We believe people thrive when they are physically and safe and emotionally resilient. We believe determination, perseverance, and resilience lead to growth and excellence. We believe relationships built on trust, compassion, and respect fuel student growth. We believe a culture of innovation is driven by curiosity and exploration. We believe each person is responsible for our collective success, and our success will be evident in each student's achievements. So we are grateful for all the work, and we have a short video to summarize that.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Our vision for 2030 is empowering every student with a world-class education that ignites passions and fuels endeavors. It is here where students will experience a world-class education, opportunities to boldly explore, and be empowered to pursue their passions. They will excel at becoming creators, critical thinkers, communicators, and connectors. Our future is not predetermined, but rather crafted by their aspirations.
What is your greatest accomplishment?
Oh, yes, my greatest accomplishment was taking very young people just like yourself and teaching them to believe in themselves and work as a team, and then see something way out there. Somebody told us, hey, let's go to the moon. And I said, gee, that's impossible. And they said, no, it's only impossible if that's the way you think.
Welcome to a place where education knows no bounds, where potential has no limits.
just summarizes the work, and there's more work to be done, and we are in that process at this time. If there are any questions, we certainly want to thank every trustee for all the investment and for being there. That was a lot of time, a lot of investment, and we are so grateful for that. The community, our students, coming together. So thank you.
Any comments? Did you have something, Mr. Larson? Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that it was really a team effort, and there was a lot of hard work, and I think the final product shows the effort that went into it and the quality of thought that went into it.
I would just echo Dr. Engel. We're fortunate that we have the level of engagement and really focus and commitment to knowing that what we set as aspirations ultimately serve as a blueprint and as a roadmap for our future success. And so while it would be easy to say that what we had was sufficient and it was working, when we look ahead and we think about what public education looks like in the future, what the opportunities and responsibility are, I appreciate the board's commitment all to having spent the time, but I especially appreciate Cabinet's time as well as the students and additional staff that were there. When we start a process like this, it never quite feels like we have everything that we need, but once we have everyone together in the room, it's amazing at how quickly things start to come together, and just shows that there's a lot of clarity around where we're headed, and putting it into words that everybody can get behind is really powerful. So thank you, and thanks to the team for all of that. So we look forward to continuing to share that message, and let's just get started.
More work to be done. Yes, so
More work to be done.
That's right. Well, thank you.
So the next item is our community-based accountability report.
Yes, and this is a perfect segue into that, actually, the video. So Dr. Henley will present the 22-23 Clear Creek ISD Community-Based Accountability Report, or CBAS, as we'll refer to it, followed by just a summary of the Texas Academic Performance Report and the TAPR. So this is the 10th year of publishing a community report card based on the characteristics of a quality public education system our community expects. The report provides our district and community with a framework to continue to improve education in Clear Creek ISD for all children. And then following the CBAS presentation, Dr. Henry will give that overview of the 22-23 Texas Academic Performance Report of the TAPR. This report includes some of the metrics in the CBAS, but does not include additional metrics, indicators, community engagement data provided in the CBAS. It was interesting. So many of the pieces in the CBAS were also in that video. As we go through that, you'll note that. So the Texas Academic Performance Report public hearing will be held at 6 o'clock at the board meeting on February 26th. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Henley.
Thank you, Dr. Engel. Thank you, board, for letting me come today to talk about community-based accountability. I want to thank the departments over here for helping us pull together and provide all that information, and communications for helping us compile it all into this beautiful document that you have before you. We like to start with just grounding the work of community-based really is in our mission of ensuring that igniting learning for all, ensuring that we lead students to achieve great, successful, be physically and emotionally safe while they're here, and that spirit of exploration. And so as we move in, I thought the message to our community in this year's community-based accountability really summed it up, because it's what our community values. It's how we put those things together, those characteristics of a quality education that was determined by them, that opportunities and unique experience that benefit the needs and aspirations of each child. So that's on page 5 of the actual electronic version of your report. So we're kind of continue to showcase the work that our community holds valuable. In the community-based accountability on pages 4 through 7, you'll really see some demographic information that later on I'll kind of hit on when I do talk about the taper. But really this is our demographics, our ethnicity, our breakdown of student groups, graduation rates, and survey data. And then really for this 10th edition, we still ground the work of community-based in those 7 pillars. And really it's kind of a litmus test of putting the information together in a way that reports student learning readiness. You will see some crossover in data that can fall in several different pillars. We just kind of isolated them into these particular 7. I'm excited that as we move forward into the work with Vision 2030 and the mission statement and all, and the vision statement and our belief statements, that we'll start to kind of refine this a little bit more and align it with those strategic goals and those beliefs and do a true community-based accountability in that fashion. So excited about that. So we'll get started on pages 8 through 11 is really where we highlighted student learning and progress, which is, we targeted this one as through the personalized opportunities and experiences. And this year we really showcased our work on math and reading, learning, and growth for elementary students. The number of students graduating with endorsements, and you'll see an increase in our STEM, which I thought was exciting this year. And then just our students that take those CTE programs of study. And while in the past we've reported a little bit different, CTE is an ongoing, ever-evolving, changing program of study pathways. And so this year we just highlighted that over 11,000 different CTE courses were taken by our students the last school year. So again, we focused on Dreambox and Amplify for our reading and math. And then pages 12 through 15 is really where we showcased student readiness, and that's where we meet the needs and aspirations of each student. So in the report, you're going to see a lot of information about our post-secondary readiness for our graduates, as well as AP results, a highlight of our dual credit programs, superintendent scholars. You'll see that 83.9% of our graduates report that they're going to graduate and go get a post-secondary degree. 65% of our students who took an AP test this last year made a 3, 4, or 5. And we had over 1,100 students earning college credit through our CC dual credit program and partnerships with San Jacinto Community College and College of the Mainland. It is interesting what we did this year because the survey for our graduates happened before they left. They told us, I'm going to go do some post-secondary schoolwork. My department took a survey and took those email addresses from those graduates, sent out an email survey to them in October of 23 to truly find out, did they do what they said they were going to do? So out of our 2,900 seniors that graduated last year, we received 763 responses, which is really only about a 25% response rate. But out of that response rate, 83% of them are attending college. So our students are telling us they're going to college, and we're actually finding data that they are attending college. Our next pillar is pages 16 through 19, which is engaged, well-rounded students. This is where we help prepare them with those soft skills to assume their role as productive citizen. Just to highlight some of the qualitative and quantitative data, we use survey responses, as well as our participation in our extracurricular fine arts and athletics programs. We focused on the continued focus on the leader in me and the character education. And then we highlighted this year robotics, FFA, and the CNA. So we have 37% of our students participating in athletics and 51% participating in fine arts. Over 83% of our survey last year responded that we provide them, that CCISD provides them with a wide variety of extracurricular activities. We have 13 schools recognized as National Schools of Character, 20 teams qualified for the VEX robotics competition. 375 students are actively participating in FFA last year, with raising in the livestock show over $312,000 from community support. And then our certified nursing assistant program, in partnership with HCA, 38 students went on to accept employment opportunities last year. So that's how we highlighted a little bit of our engaged, well-rounded students. The next pillar on pages 20 through 21 in the report is professional learning and quality staff. This is where we focus on our capacity to accomplish our strategic intent. So really in this section, we highlight some professional learning, our retention rate, and our starting salary increase for new teachers. So over 89,000 hours of professional learning is what our teachers gained throughout last year. We have an 85% teacher retention rate in CCISD, and of course that $2,000 bump. So again, highlighting that we value the work that our professional learning staff is accomplishing. And then our next pillar, pages 22 through 23, is our community engagement and partnerships. In this, we're really focusing on our connections in the community. And this year we highlighted our social media followers. You can see kind of how we engage with them in our social media platforms, some of our parent connections, but really the focus highlighted was our Vision 2030 work, which has those bold objectives that we're continuing forward even now. Our Interfaith Collaborative, where we partnered the work to try to partner a faith-based organization with a school, and really to have those two-way dialogues and working with our counseling department to support our campuses and our students' needs. And then, of course, we can't forget the strategic budget team who worked tirelessly at the end of last year to really set the stage for some cost-saving measures and lay that groundwork for that successful bond election that we had in the fall. And we could not do that without the support of many of our community support organizations, such as our Communities in Schools, Bay Area Alliance, Assistance League of Bay Area, and then CCISD Cares as well. And our sixth pillar is on pages 24 through 25, which really focuses on safety and well-being, which was one of the things our community is engaged in right now, and it's ensuring that safe and nurturing learning environments. And so for this, it was a lot of qualitative data and focus on our own internal survey that we give to our parents, our teachers, and to our students in grades 4 through high school. And you're going to notice a couple of things that I thought were highlight worthy, such as in the 21-22 school year, 44.3% of our secondary students agreed and strongly agreed that the school district cared about their mental health. You'll see an increase to 71.8% last year. So I think that we made strides in that communication and effort there. Another highlight was 87% of the overall respondents in the 21-22 year reported that the school district was safe, which, I'm sorry, in this school year, 87% reported in the 23 school year that their district was safe, and that's an increase from 70% from the prior year. You'll see an increase in counselor visits from the 21-22 school year, averaged 4.8, to last year, averaging 5.5. And then you'll see some information about our school discipline, safety facts, and the watchdog, highlight on the watchdogs. And then our last pillar, shout out to Alice Benzai and her work, and really the financial and operational, fiscal and operationals, and Mrs. Paul Miller as well. But that mutual understanding and support through effective communication of how our budget impacts. And so we highlighted that we allocate $8,956 per student. Several rewards that the finance department has received, as well as a highlight in the community donations. And I think that community donations piece, when you think about the booster clubs and PTA giving over $800,000, and then our CCEF, the $1.2 million, that's all community support. And that just shows the impact that our community believes and stands behind what we are doing and helps support us when we need that financial boost. So that's kind of a brief overview of the community-based accountability report that you have. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Sure. I'll go first, and I guess could you explain how the CTE programs of study enrollment is different from what's previously been reported? I mean, is there a change in how that's calculated, or if we compare it to last year, is that kind of an apples to orange comparison?
It's going to be a little bit of an apples and oranges comparison because of the way that the courses change, the course name or the PEMS will change, and so they'll shift within this pathway. Oh, no, now it's down in this other pathway. It used to be business, now it's in human resource. So it fluctuates, and so it was very hard to try to get that comparison from year to year. If you go back and look at our previous, you'll see that year-to-year comparison. And then when we started trying to do this one, it got really messy. And so to have that all in here, we kind of pulled it out. It is something that we could probably provide you in a separate addendum.
Yeah, because just looking at them side by side, because I pulled up last year's report also, we had pretty steady enrollment growth in these classes. We were at about 14,793 last year, and this year we're at 11,499. So is that a calculation change, or did we really lose 3,200 students who were enrolled in CTE classes?
Right. I don't believe we lost 3,200. I believe part of that is a calculation in intermediate to high school and how that all flowed. And so this year's is more focused just on the high school CTE and not including some of that intermediate coursework.
Okay. Is there a way you could break that out, maybe the previous year's high school enrollment, just so that we could see if that trend is...
Looking at my data analyst. I believe so, yes. That is something we can prepare for you.
And we can provide that in an update. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks.
I'm saying that.
Thanks, Ron. Any other questions?
Just a couple things. So back to what Trustee Bowen was talking about. Isn't there some overlapping also? Like when it says 11,000,
there
it's
are.
not actually 11,000 students.
This is not unique students.
Right.
This
unique.
student
That's
could take 4 different CTE courses in the course of 1 year, right? Half semester courses. So there is a lot of overlap. These are not unique students.
So I think if there's some follow-up, I think that may help also because it's not unique. It's not the individual student that's getting 11,000 or 14,000. There's some overlapping. So if you go forward with some extra research on that, maybe help and break that down.
We'll put a distinction in that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
because I know that we've made some changes over the last year, hoping more students will enroll by making the GPA changes, things like that. So hopefully we'll see those numbers increase again in the future. But again, having that breakdown, I think, will help clarify some of that.
Well, and that was another question I had was we're now into I believe the second year of that GPA change. Are we in the first year?
First year.
We're the
Still in
first
the
year.
first year.
These freshmen, these freshmen are the
This is the first
ones
thing.
that
Okay.
have the opportunity to have that GPA in there.
So I guess so far we probably wouldn't have seen much impact of that because every freshman has to take, right. So I guess I would be interested to see kind of as this cohort becomes sophomores and juniors, if we start to see higher fine arts enrollment in those grades. It didn't seem like there was much of a difference in ninth grade compared to ninth grades of previous years, but maybe we'll see that improve later.
And they're just starting, like I think tonight is 6th grade, course selection preview, and there's a lot going on this week. So we really won't have a good number until the fall, once everything settles and the kids are finalized with their course selection. So we can start looking at that in the fall.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thanks.
Mr. Trump?
Yeah. So then a couple other observations that, to my takeaways from it. So obviously our tax rate reduction, I know, to give Ms. Benzai and her team the kudos on that. I think it's dropped down over 30 cents. I think we're probably even 35 or so cents or more. And at the same time, our average expenditure per student has increased, while the state's not really giving us any more money. So for that fiscal responsibility for the district and how we're managing that, I think is really a huge positive. I love to see that major increase for the safe and supportive place to learn. I know that was a big topic of our conversations in the past couple of years, especially for those high schoolers, to see that number jump up to about 80%. I think before, I don't remember what the number was, but it was significantly lower. But to have that confidence in their safe learning environment to jump up to 80%, that I know that in the past was a huge, big part of our conversation. So great job on that. Some of the other observations maybe help clarify. SAT scores have gone down and ACT scores have gone down. Is that correct?
Yeah, that concerned me too, but then I looked at it and it's global. So I'm is that, and I noticed it too with some of the mastering of math and reading scores. So is that just an adjustment by the state making it more difficult? mean, what are we looking at? Because it's a global trend there too.
I don't know that it's necessarily an adjustment by the state, but I do think that we're seeing those global trends in math performance, especially just down across in different standardized assessments, such as PSAT, SAT.
But what
On
we,
some of it, it looks like we made grounds in the middle, but on the ends,
The other
we-
thing, yeah.
we kind of maybe lost some ground.
Yes, and I apologize, didn't mean to interrupt. The other thing I was going to mention, SAT right now, because not all colleges require it for college admission, we're going to see a little bit of a dip, and I think that's where you're seeing some state and national trends as well, because kids aren't taking it. And so when you have a different group of students taking it, your scores tend to fluctuate from previous years.
Yeah, I definitely saw the dip in the number of students that were taking the test. It was just a little bit alarming, or I shouldn't even qualify it as a little alarming. It's alarming anytime you see scores go down. So is that something that the district is going to try to focus on addressing? Is there a way to go about trying to address specifically the SAT and ACT scores?
I'm going to defer.
How do you address that, I guess?
Yeah.
Is my question.
I think that to me there needs to be if the students know they don't need it in college or they don't need it for admission, there's less of a attraction to take it. I think our coursework, we are always trying, to your point of are we trying to improve to better align or to increase scores, we're always trying to do that. But I think the group of students has changed over time about who's taking it, how many are taking it. Now I hear some colleges are sort of swinging back now that we're past, we're getting past COVID. So I anticipate there might be a change in that expectation for them, which would then increase our numbers potentially. But I think we're always looking for better ways to align. And specifically in secondary math, we have an opportunity, and we're reviewing most of our curriculum for most of our courses right now with new leadership in that department. So we're anticipating some changes.
Yeah.
And I'll add that this year we've used Texas College Bridge for TSI readiness. And reports back from the kids is that the Texas College Bridge has better prepared them for the SAT and their approach to it. So, of course, that was just implemented this year, so we won't get that data for a while. But that's something that we're hearing about by voice from students that that program has helped prepare them for that SAT and the ACT.
Will we be tracking that? I love to hear that. So starting it now, is that something we'll be able to track so that we can say these kids took this and here's how their scores results were compared to the others?
Yeah. And I will say that in visiting with other school districts in the area that have utilized the program, they have seen an increase in the SAT scores.
Good. Yeah.
I'll say too, even on, I'm sorry, but I was going to piggyback too. We're even getting that feedback from the teachers, the dean of instructions, that this course is really preparing those students to take those tests.
Yeah.
So we're getting very good feedback. We just don't have that data yet to validate it.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on the SAT subject, the SAT isn't designed to be a test of how well educated you are. So there's only so much a school district can do to improve SAT performance, but ultimately it's an aptitude test. It basically measures like the raw material of the student, and if you can teach a student how to take a test, and that will get their score higher, but there's only so much of that you can do before it's more about kind of their natural ability and age than it is about how much they've been taught. So I think when we look at things more like STAR, as bad of a test as STAR can be, it's more designed to be a test of what you've been taught, not ability or aptitude. So I think looking at SAT scores tells you a lot about, it tells you more about who is taking the test than it does necessarily about how well the district is doing in preparing them for the test, because there's only so much you can do to prepare. And so if we see dropping SAT scores compared to global, what that maybe tells us, it can tell us one of two things. it could tell us that we're actually encouraging more students to take it who otherwise wouldn't have, or maybe some students on the top end are not seeing the need to take it, and so they're excluding themselves from the average by not taking it. And I'm guessing it's more of that because the overall number of students taking it went down. So sometimes these data points don't always tell the story, you know?
Well, and so I appreciate that perspective. So we put this community-based accountability report out there, letting everybody know how our district is doing. And so, yeah, there's obviously more perspective, and then, you know, do you bother even putting it in here anymore? You know, anyway, we are, so we have to address it. All right, and anybody in the community that's going to look at this, I know I've already had several questions about the scores. And so, you know, as long as we've got it in there and we're tracking it, we need to make sure we, you know, keep a pulse on it. So the other testing one that I was going to mention was that STAR testing, the reading language arts, the scores dropping in the meets and masters portion of it for the elementary. It looked like math was pretty stable. You know, the delta difference was only about 1%, but the reading language arts meets and masters looked like it had dropped quite a bit consistently. Is there something, are we addressing that with curriculum changes?
We have, well, I was just going to say, we are transitioning, and what we're seeing is our students in the primary grades, which I know we learned a bit about the reading academies and the work to help our earliest students become readers before they get to third grade. We have really refined that, and we see some great swings on the K-2 data. More students are reading on level or by the end of second grade. But what we are still working on is that transition after second grade, right? And so we actually were in a meeting earlier today talking about curriculum adjustments for really elementary ELA, because we continue to refine that to align with some of the practices in the reading academies. And I know reading academies are designed for K-3 teachers, but really some of those concepts are also used in 4 and 5, especially for those students that have come through maybe and not had all of those, that specific instruction. And so now they're in 4th and 5th and need some extra support. And so we are working to, in fact, next Monday at our DPL day, we have some specific sessions for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers designed to help them fill in potential gaps that students have in phonics and really knowing how to attack words and read words and decode and then encode and writing. And so we are refining those. I don't know if you want to add anything.
But it seems to me like it's part of a bigger macro issue, right? Because I'm noticing on the state side, it's the same drop. So what else is at play here that we don't have control over? That's kind of, I think, maybe the interesting thing to look at.
Piece of certainly growth for all, right? And that we've got to be growing kids and growing their ability at every level past that gate of which the state is measuring. And so even if a child scored well the previous year, they've not only got to maintain that, but also grow from that. And that's a piece that we are zoning in on as well. But last year, I think we spent a lot of time backfilling still, and across the state, I think many folks were filling in those back skills and working on those foundational skills. This year is really focused on growth for all, and I think that's a united theme across every classroom in the district, and to the point of our 5th grade teachers wanting to understand phonics better to be able to still make sure that there's not one child not growing ahead. So I think that is it's a swing that we are in, and you see the trend. I know you look for trends in the data. It is something that we're all working towards. But it takes whole communities working to read for fluency and read and master those skills. So that's definitely a piece that we're partnering with.
To speak to Trustee Cottrell's point is, if it was just happening to us, then it's an us problem. But this seems to be more of a global problem. So hopefully, you know, there's a lot of people working on this problem.
The nation's shifting.
Absolutely.
And it's certainly shifting in reading philosophy and thinking, and we are definitely working right within that, right on the edge of it.
Well, Ms. Hughes, when you look at STAR scores, I mean, what we're seeing here, like correct me if I'm wrong, but the state sets the definition of approaches, meets, and masters, as in, like, they get raw scores from the results of all the tests first, and then they look at the distribution of the scores, and after that, they use that distribution to set the approaches, meets, and masters targets, right? So this is not, like, these reading scores are not objective measurements. Everyone's being graded on a curve. And so
That's exactly
the,
how we started our
the
conversation this
threshold-
morning. Yeah.
So the threshold for what may be approaches or meets or masters in 2021 may be completely different from 2022 or 2023. It's not an objective static measurement that you can always compare yourself. It's like the ruler is different every time you pick it up. And so you can't really, again, like, it's dangerous to read too much into this, because you can look at how you're doing compared to the state, but really all that tells you is where you are on the curve. What I am interested in, though, is on the Amplify assessments, how do we compare to the state on those?
That's a better question.
That is
That's
such
a
a great
better
question.
yes.
And I'm so interested in how we are doing within the district. I need to, thank you for asking that question.
But that is not based on a scale, to your point,
It's
that's
not
not
scale.
based on a scale score, and there is a possibility if you actually, students.
Right. Yeah.
Documenting
maybe,
they know how to
maybe,
do
maybe
things.
to put it more simply, it is not possible right now for every student in the state of Texas to approach, meet, or master on the STAR test. The way the STAR test is set up, they will shift the curve to make sure a certain percentage of students fail.
Yes, sir.
But is that true of Amplify also, or is it
No,
possible?
it is not.
Okay.
It is not. It is not. It is
But
not.
Amplify also ends at grade 2?
No, we have additional data beyond that.
Okay.
That we definitely can pull a deeper Amplify report. I just couldn't speak to that right here now on a broader scope and spectrum. But definitely data that we are tracking so deeply within the district that our focus has been fully on that to make sure every child is making that growth. But we can definitely share that with you.
Thanks.
At a greater scale. And that is a conversation we started our day with about the STAR assessment and the stack measure of. So thank you for bringing that up. Right?
So I'm
Wow.
back. All right. So to my point, it's about messaging. This is a community report that's going out to everybody, and to Trustee McKay and Trustee Bowen's comments and everything that contributed to it. There's more information. There's more that meets the eye. And so this report, while it has a lot of great information and it shows the improvements and struggles and things along the way, the messaging that's going out to our community, we're the ones, well, we know y'all are the ones who receive phone calls and emails and texts too, but a lot of times we're the ones who are saying, what are y'all doing from our position? And the messaging that people are getting out of this is, like Trustee Bowen said, it's dangerous to read too much into it. So, we need to provide some additional information, perspective on why these scores are dropping and how they're scoring us, and a test that's set up to, grade you based on how many fail, or, those kind of things. So, so that's, there are metrics for us, like, things that we're grading ourselves on. But when you see these global trends in the states and other districts and everything, then there's additional messaging that needs to go out with that. So, and with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rittrell. Any other comments or questions from other trustees? Did you have some? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I guess I'll just make a comment about this report as a whole, because, we've done these reports for several years now, and it's never really seemed like there's been an effort to come to us first and figure out, like, what we think is important before we run and get all of the data to put in this document. It's kind of like we get it as a finished product, and we are shown what I guess the district administration thinks is important for the community. But I wonder if we just need to rethink our entire process here and have a step where, before this report goes out, we get asked kind of what we think is important. Because I think when a lot of our data, just as an example, when a lot of our data is based on STAR, then it almost comes across like we're talking out of both sides of our mouths. Because on one side, we're correctly, I think, pretty insistent that you can't read too much into STAR data. It changes every single year. The state changes how they grade it every single year. There's a new test completely every 5 years. And so you can't use it to build year-to-year trends. But at the same time, we also, it's kind of the center point of our entire data report. And so if there's better data we should be showing that really demonstrates that our district is doing its job, then I think we should kind of all get on the same page about that first, and then go find it and report it. The way this is brought to us doesn't really give us the opportunity to do that. I think we're just kind of given what we're given, and that's it. So I wish this whole process were a lot more collaborative from the start. That's kind of all I have.
And to try not to have to explain
right
all those things. I mean, again, I like this over the A through F, reports. I mean, this is specific to our district and everything. But I definitely see where you're coming from.
Thank you. Thank you all. Maybe just building on some of the things that have been mentioned, as I remember, the community-based accountability report is really our decision and our discipline to share and reflect on how we're doing across multiple areas. And so ultimately that's what's reflected here. I think the elements that get included and the data that we track or that we highlight and the extent to which they help tell a story or not, I think is ultimately what would be helpful for us to know. I think as we talk about discussions we've had around superintendent targets and around district goals, I know in our discussion, it's really how do we get our arms around the data that helps us track trends and how we're doing. And I know it's been a challenge, I think, always to do that. And so where we have the ability to do that, I think it could just help us ask probably better questions and focus our energy in ways that may provide greater support to cabinet and from a district perspective. I do think, I appreciate the comments that have been made because people will walk away from a document with a different perspective and a different impression because they may not have the context. And so even though we sit often looking at this information, there have been some questions that have been asked today. And so how we help bring that context together with the document as it stands, I think really would be helpful because otherwise people may have a different impression of what this says about where we are. And then ultimately how we think about future reports. If there's something that we do as part of our discussion around goals, if it fits in with our strategic plan, and if it allows us to still own what that looks like, but provide data that makes more sense and helps tell a story about the areas where we're putting emphasis, I think that might be really, really helpful. So,
and I'll go back to what Dr. Henley said up front. This is kind of a version that we are looking to change and to align with our goals. As we create this new strategic plan, as the board, pushes forward and really supports that and approves that will drive this next year. So we've really had those conversations about making sure that everything aligns. And she did mention that, but I think as we're talking through it, how important that is to align those metrics. And then what are those most important metrics? And going back, how can we tell that story? And we can go back. I mean, this is a draft, but I don't know. I mean, we could go back and make some changes, but I think since it is data from 22, 23, maybe looking forward and seeing what can we do as we move forward to align it with our new strategic plan that will be ultimately approved.
We can add context into this document. It hasn't been published officially yet. That's this process. So I'll get Dr. Henley and we can see what we can do to add some context to the content. And that
this year.
Yeah.
Perfect.
the next week or so. We can bring it back to we need it for a future day. We can just share it out and try to report.
And I really like the idea of just using the information that is collected for our district goals, because there are a couple of nice things about the district goals. One is that they are things that we've all agreed are important, and we voted on them, and we're truly holding ourselves accountable to them. Versus like SAT data, I think is important to track, but you should never have an objective that no one in your organization can meaningfully change. And at the end of the day, the SAT is a hard thing to change. There are efforts you can do here and there to try and improve it, but if we're putting something out there that we can't really meaningfully impact that much, then I think it could give people the wrong impression, right? Now, it's useful to have that data, but it's not accountability data. It's data that we collect to inform our efforts. So there are some things in here like that are kind of out of our control to the point where it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to say that we're holding ourselves accountable to them. I mean, like if we set a goal for everybody to average a 600 in math across everybody who takes the SAT, I don't think any of us would even consider that a meaningful goal, because it just wouldn't be possible. So yeah, it's just something we have to be careful about, but I like the approach of tying it to the district goals and the strategy.
And adding some context from some of the notes that we took today. We will definitely add context. Right now on the website, it's last year's. So it's not up yet. Right.
And then I just also wanted to say thank you. Thank you for trying to put your arms around all of this, to package it in just a few pages to tell an entire story, which is data-based, but is hard, from year to year. So thank you for spending the time to do that. Thank you to the team that spends a lot of time focused on that to try to anticipate what will help us, drive attention and demonstrate that what we're doing is having a positive impact. And so thank you all for the time. And thanks to everybody who helps. I'm sure lots of people are providing content, and then you all are helping to pull it together. So hopefully these questions and comments are helpful for future reports. And if I heard correctly, I think Mr. Bowen would be happy to serve on a special team to navigate this crazy data. But it is an interest, and some of it is motivated by just how we do our work, normally and outside of the board, and some of it is based on questions and conversations that we have, because people will inevitably make a statement based on what they see, and they think that's ultimately what they walk away with. And so if we have more opportunities to shape it, I think we'll end up with an even better report. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Eagle.
Thank you. And then we were going to, Dr. Henley's going to just share that TAPR, that review of the TAPR, which really some of these metrics are taken from the TAPR, but there's so much more in that community-based accountability.
All right, so I think we'll continue the presentation we had up. Yeah. So this is just the draft of the little bit of the information that we'll compile for the next board meeting, just to kind of showcase what's in that taper, because it is very much all quantitative. It is very much PEIMS and STAR driven. So just kind of brief little overview of that. In that report, you're going to find the 8 sections that deal with your Texas Academic Performance Report, your PEIMS financial data, accreditation, our campus performance objectives, report on violent and criminal incidences, as well as our student performance and post-secondary, progress toward board-adopted HB3 goals, and then the glossary. So those are the sections that are in this 1,300-page report. That's an electronic document. I believe y'all have a draft copy of that. So just to kind of briefly, again, that first section is the big bulk of that report, which is really your PEIMS information, as well as the student assessment data. We do publish this as a PDF electronic version on our website. And as I move on, so in the past, you would have A through F ratings, you would have special education determination status, and you would have distinction designations. However, as of right now, the issuance of A through F is pending, under 2023 rule is pending and subject to change. So even this preliminary report the state put out is that preliminary and could very well change and shift as they release the final version. So we talked about demographics in the community base. We do a comparison of those demographics to region and state. So you'll see, again, our two highest areas as well as the state's comparison. And then furthermore into the student programs, so we break out, the state in this report will break out student groups and populations such as special education, GT, economically disadvantaged, and our EB and at-risk populations. So you'll see again our percentages as compared to the region and state. And I believe that's on page 30 and 31 of the overall 1,300 page report. I could be off a couple of page numbers, I won't lie, but I believe it's right around that area. Moving on, still in section 1, this is that performance for what Mr. Bowen had mentioned. We have the approaches, meets, and master's level based on each subject. For each assessment, all subjects and all grades by subject. And that's in grades 3 through U.S. history, which is grade 11-ish. Academic growth is reported. This year it's going to be reported a little bit differently in that, but we still have for each assessment all grades and grades by subject. As a reminder, for academic growth, that's performance for consecutive years. This is based on, again, that PEAMS snapshot date, which is that last Friday in October. So it's the students that are here in October. So not this all of our students that test with us, but just who was enrolled with us in that last Friday of October. Also in breakdown in section 1, you're going to see some information about our bilingual ed and our ESL populations, percentages, broken down again as approaches, meets, and masters, as well as our STAR participation. This year we're at 98% STAR participation. We roughly stay between 98 and 99%. I did some graphs just so you kind of see the breakdown in the percentages that you're going to see in this long table in the taper. So we just did just some graphics so you see them as compared to the state and region. So you'll see where the darker blue. And this is the approaches level. And I did the same thing for the meets level. So again, and this is all subjects and then each category, RLA reading, math, science, and social studies. And then our masters as compared to the state and region. Looks like my colors might be a little off on that one. I apologize. And then, because again, data is my world, I took grade 3 math and broke that down because in the taper you see the different student groups that we report on. So not only do you see state, region, district, but then you see our ethnic groups and our student groups that the state reports on. So there's about 13 different groups. They'll continue that reporting for this year. This is just math and then approaches, meets, and masters. And then I did grade 3 reading, approaches, meets, and masters. Also in that taper, you're going to see attendance, graduation, and dropout rates. So while you saw that for 22-23, remember this report is our 22 graduates. So this is graduates that were in 22. So our attendance rate, that's the same calculation, and then our longitudinal dropout rate, and then our 4-year graduation rate. You'll see our attendance rate for 21-22 school year was 93% above the state and region. And then dropouts, you can see we are significantly below region and state. And you'll see that we are higher in our longitudinal graduation rate, which is just the 4-year. They average it all together, but you'll see a 98.4. Those are just a little bit of the highlights. Again, college, career, military readiness. Military graduates are still not included. There's just not a way to calculate those yet. They will come into effect with the next reporting. But we talk about, so again, these are 22 except for the graduates enrolled in Texas Institutes of Higher Ed. Those are even going to be a year further from that. So those are the 21 graduates. So this data that we get in TAPER is a little bit older, especially when we talk about CCMR and all of that. So it doesn't reflect the work that's been ongoing within our district. But you'll see just a breakdown of percentage tables for the college, career, military ready graduates, for TSI criteria, AP associates, all of those, and our total CCMR as compared to region and state. And then you'll see other college and career ready indicators. So while graduates are the 22 seniors, we do have some measurements where we have AP results for our current 11th and 12th graders for that reporting year, which was 21-22, and their performance. So that's why there's a little bit distinction between those two sections. And again, this is all in that 1,300-page document. So we broke the percentage down of this is graduates enrolled. These are graduates enrolled in an public institute of higher ed. So whether it's 2 year or 4 years. So you'll see we went ahead and gave you a couple of years worth of data. I believe they only report 2. We went ahead and left in 2018-19, but you'll see our percent as compared to the region and state. And then we finally get into section 2 of the district report, which is approximately on page 1,180 to 1,184-ish. But this is reporting for 21-22. So while we highlighted in community-based some of the work where we have the awards, this is just the raw numbers of our revenues, expenditures, tax rates, and fund balance. And so we just went ahead and gave you a little bit of a graphic here where you see our past 4 years and then our 22-23 budgeted because it hasn't been finalized by the state yet. But you'll see again the tax rate for $100 valuation, our fund balance with the exception of 23, and then the approximate number that we've spent per student for the last. And you'll see again that increase over the last 4 years. And then it kind of got mentioned in CBAS a little bit, but we didn't compare it to the state and just how much of our instructional general fund that we allot for each one of these categories. I'll highlight instruction at 65.42%, where the state's an average of 61. But you can see where we spend a little bit more money than the state average. And then we get into section 3. This is where the report moves really fast because all of that is front loaded with STAR data and then the finance data, and then it moves super fast to accreditation, which is approximately 1,320 page number to 323. We are accredited for the 22-23 school year. And then section 4 jumps into campus improvement plans. We call these goal setting documents. This is approximately 1,324 to 1,356. There are links to the goal setting documents. These are the works that our campuses are doing to improve goals where they have academic achievement, attendance, and I believe some set for behavior or culture and belonging. So you'll see their goal setting campus improvement plans. Then section 5 is our report on violent criminal incidents. You'll see that when 21-22, we had a report of 45 instances. 29 of those were really felony controlled substances. The rest of them were a wide variety, but they're masked for confidentiality purposes because our number was less than 5 per category. So you won't actually see to protect those students. Section 6 is our performance in post-secondary. So this is graduates who attended a public 2-year or 4-year institute and their GPA average. So now we're even going back further data to 2019 to 2020 because it takes the state quite a few years to gather this information and put that in. But you'll see that in section 6 of the report, which is on page 1,368. And then our section 7 is really the work for the original House Bill 3 goals, not this new House Bill 3 about safety. This is the one that was focusing on early childhood literacy, early math proficiency, as well as CCMR. And so that report is included in the TAPER. So we took the 2025 goal, which was for CCMR 66%. We said 60% will have that annual CCMR criteria. Our 23 interim target was 63.3. Our result was 62.9 for our 21 graduates. So we did not meet that interim target. Early childhood literacy, 2025 goal was 57 of our third grade scoring at above meets level. Our interim target was 54%. Our result was 60%. So we met our interim target and exceeded the 2025 target. And then childhood math, we had 25 goal of 56%, interim goal of 53. We met that at a 54%. Did not meet our long range 2025 target, but did meet our interim goal. So based on that and some discussion, we looked at the goals, especially for CCMR, and took the opportunity to go ahead and adjust that overall 2025 goal to 70%. And that's really based on the work that's happening right now in the classroom with our seniors, with the work with Texas College Bridge, and our focus really on increasing that performance and college readiness for math and RLA. So we have adjusted that goal, and then we adjusted the campus goals based on that as well. Early childhood literacy, we went back and looked at math and literacy and looked and said, did we exceed our interim target for 2 consecutive years? Taking into account the COVID and learning loss and then the work that we've done. So early childhood actually has that exceeding for 2 consecutive interim target reporting. So we adjusted the 2025 goal to be 62%. And then adjusted our 2024 goal to 61% for early childhood literacy. Math, while we did hit that interim target this year in 23, we did not meet it in 22, so we did not adjust our overall district goal. But you're going to notice in the reports that we did for HB3, each campus may have had some adjusted goals for both math and literacy. And then our high schools had it obviously for CCMR, so we adjusted all 5 of those. And then the last section of that report that is provided to you is just the glossary to kind of help explain what each one of those are. And if you need way more information on how they calculate that, I can go in, we can provide that for you. So that's kind of just an overview of where we are landing with our public report information that'll come out at the next board meeting. And so any questions about that little brief synopsis of that 1,300 page?
Thank you. Any questions from trustees?
You like numbers a lot, don't you?
Just a little, maybe.
It's awesome.
Maybe.
So a comment from Trustee McKay. Any questions or other comments?
I think we kind of went over everything in the other report.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Well, this is helpful to see where some of the data that we saw on the community-based accountability report comes from, and then definitely some of the adjustments for CCMR and childhood literacy. I know those are some discussions that we had previously about being able to make those adjustments because we were seeing progress in those. But thank you again for pulling all of that together. I know when I opened the packet, I actually closed it and opened it again because I thought maybe it was the wrong packet. I think it was more than 1,400 pages, and so it really was that many pages. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping to synthesize that information for us. So. Anything else, Dr.
No, just really want to thank the team because I know that going through all of that and consolidating it into this information that's digestible for us and actionable, that's a huge challenge. So we do appreciate that. It's gotten very complex as far as what the state puts out. So to your team, thank you, and really appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Thank you. So the board will now move to closed session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.001 concerning purposes permitted by the Act, including 551.071 consultation with attorney, 551.072 deliberation regarding real property, and 551.074 deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignments, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an employee. And we'll go into closed session at 5:41. 6:32, and I call this meeting back into open session, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Larson?
I move that in accordance with Board Policy FNG Local, I move that the Board of Trustees uphold the Level 1 decision.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Any comments or questions from trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor, if you'll raise your right hand, please. It passes unanimous. Thank you. And with no further business before the board, we'll adjourn at 6:32.